Good morning. Let's get started. So yesterday we have seen simple routing. Today we will be seeing some more extension of this routing, like nested routing. So let's go ahead and get into this application. So here I want to show my reviews and some more information about that product. So how I want to achieve that is with the help of nested routing. So I would like to have some more routes here, say reviews or say specs, something like that, and which should show up some other information regarding this product. So I don't really have a lot of information in the database, so that's okay, but we have reviews. I have added some reviews on this product. We can play around with those reviews. Before moving forward, first let's create a couple of components. So I'm going to create ngGC specs. This is going to be a dummy component just for demonstration. And I'm going to create another component by the name reviews. Go to specs component, just say more specs. That's all information this product will have, or this component will have, nothing more than that. And go to reviews component. At this moment, I want it to have only this reviews heading. Okay, save this. Looks like it has created one extra file. I don't need this, so I'll delete it. And same thing with specs. Okay, looks like specs is good. So now I want to display them somewhere here, the more specs and the reviews. So how I want to do them is as a tab. So let's create the view first. So this is product detail component. Go to product detail. And here I would like to keep the tabs. I'll say UL, nav, tabs. And here I would like to have LI, A tag, and say specs, LI. Say reviews. Okay, let's save this and see how this looks like. It looks like I messed up somewhere. Some tag is not properly closed. Okay, still that doesn't really help. Okay, this one. Here it is. I have my specs and reviews. If you want to add active class, you can. When you add an active class, this looks like a tab or activated tab. Here it is, like this. So when I click on the specs, I should see specs in my URL. That's one thing. And when I click on reviews, I should see reviews, something like that. So let's see how can we achieve that. This is not going to be a top level routing, rather it's a routing of child route of this product. So this is going to be a little different, not drastic difference is there, but slight difference you would notice here. I'll go to my routing module, or probably it's app routing. Yep. Here in this product slash ID is the route, and I want to have children for this. Children are going to be identical to this route array. So I'm just going to say path. This is going to be specs, and the component is spec component. Let me wrap this. And the same way, it's going to be reviews, and the component is going to be reviews component. Okay, so this may be a little hard to read. So what I would like to do is I just want to get this and keep it here. Say constant children of type route, paste it. Okay, here it is. And this children is going to be children. Okay, so now this route has some child route as well. That's what it means. Save this, whether that helps, because when we have created this routing, the top level routing, we had a router outlet. If you remember app.component.ts, we have this router outlet, and we told it's like indirectly saying that, okay, this is where the content or the dynamic components go, and kind of you're giving a hint to the Angular. The same thing applies here as well. When you go to product detail component, where should that component be replaced dynamically? You should tell it. So I'm going to say here in a div, okay, replace it here using router outlet. So there can be any number of router outlet directives based on the levels of routing you have. At this moment, we have two levels of routing. One is top level, another one is this low level. If everything goes good, I should see something. Okay, I don't really notice any difference. Okay, I'm seeing specs. When I say reviews, okay, I'm seeing reviews component. This is a reviews component. But one problem you might have noticed here is this specs is still active. The reason is we have hard coded this active class. So this active class should be dynamic. It should not be hard coded. So for that, you can write your own logic, but you have something like a router link active directory. No, I'm sorry, this is directive available inbuilt in Angular. You just need to provide the name of the class to this directive, and this will take care of finding out the active route and adding this class on top of this element. Now go to specs. Okay, it doesn't really help. Okay, it's not working. Let's not worry about it at this moment. Let's change this to router link because I'm not able to click on them. So I'll say specs and router link reviews. Okay, now this is active. Go reviews, it is also active. So looks like that has fixed both the issues. So one thing you might have noticed here, I'm not putting slash here. If you go to header component, I had that forward slash here, but not here. The reason is this is not absolute route or absolute path. This is going to be relative to the parent. So assume that this is a parent route. On top of it, it's going to be review. So you cannot say specs. If you say specs, it's just going to be localhost 4000 specs. That's not what our route is. So this is how you create nested routing. Let me summarize one more time. Go to app.module, not app.module, but app.router module. Here, I've added this children property on top of this route. And this children is nothing but again a route configuration. And then in product detail component, I've created a tabs and links. This is like the navigation. And I had created a router outlet directive here as well. So this directive is going to help you replace the dynamic content wherever it is or whichever component is active. So there is no limit to the number of nestings or number of levels that you can have in routing. The specs component may have its own child routes. This reviews component may have its own child routes and the URL may grow, and that is absolutely fine. So what's the advantage of having this nested routing? Strictly speaking, without this complexity of routing, you can achieve this reviews and specs. You can have tabs and you can directly put your reviews component and the specs component here without even worrying about the child routes or nested routing. But what's the advantage of this is it's like you're trying to manage some sort of state. So assume that I'm on my uh, reviews component, or at this stage, if I do a control D to add a bookmark, so I'm adding exactly this state as a bookmark. When I open it, I'll be on this reviews tab. So assume that I'll just copy it. Assume I've done kind of a bookmarking. So when I say hit enter, see, I'm exactly on my reviews. If you don't have this kind of nested routing, probably you will not arrive at this stage. You'll go at the default state. So this is really helping when when you want a user to again navigate to the exact page. And this helps in obviously in search engine indexing also, because search engine uh, puts the page in the cache. So even in searching, it helps. So it's a good idea that you go with nested routing rather than just it putting it on the page. So okay, let's get back and try to finish this reviews component. It doesn't have anything, but honestly, we have reviews on this product. So this product, I've added a couple of reviews. So let's see how can we pass the data. Now I'm going to show you another way of sharing the data among the components. One way I've shown you already is with the help of at input decorator. When you have a parent and child relationship, you can use at input decorator and pass the data from top to bottom. But this is kind of, again, they don't have, even though they have a parent and child relationship here, the product detail and reviews. Now I'm not directly activating the component. I'm activating using a router outlet. So in this case, at input is not possible. So we'll share the data using a service. So let me open Paint and try to draw that, what I mean. So this is my service and this is my product detail component. And this is my reviews component. So this reviews component needs some data. So what I'm going to do, I'll declare one variable by the name reviews here. on my service. This is nothing but the product service. So this product detail component has the data, so it is going to set the reviews variable or property, and this reviews is going to get the data. That's how I want to establish a communication or share the data between these two components, because I cannot directly share, so I'm using a service to share. And remember, we have learned services are singleton, so you can use definitely service for data sharing. Let's go ahead and do step by step. Go to product service and try to declare a property. It's very simple. It's end of the day, it's a class. So I'll have my reviews property. It's going to be of type any array. Save this and go to product detail component. And this response will have reviews also. So once I get my response, once this is successful, I want to say this dot product service dot reviews equals to response dot reviews, something like that. Okay, I'm seeing an error. This is because of strong typing, so just say reviews. That should fix the issue. Here it is. Now save this. I'm setting it. The getting is going to be in the reviews component. Setting is done, and this part is remaining. Let's go ahead and do it. Say reviews. And inside the constructor that I want to do it, I need product service. And here I'm going to say this dot reviews equals to svc dot reviews. Okay, this part is done, and now it's time to render them. So I'm going to say div ng for let review of reviews. Let me once have a look at it. What are the properties that are being sent as part of the response? So go to product service. From that's where I can grab my URL, come back, make a GET request. And this product has some reviews. So say /ID, and this is the reviews. So I'm getting rating, name, subject, and message. Let's go ahead and show all of them. I'll say name here, review.name, and say review.rating. This is going to be a star. So I'm not using any components. You can find many components to show reviews or ratings online. So probably you may want to show it in a nice way to save some time, again, not get into that complexity. So I'm just putting a star. And here I would like to go with the subject. And finally, I would like to go with the whatever the message. Okay, it's time to go to Angular UI. It looks like I missed somewhere. Review dot. Okay, couldn't quite understand what that means. At line number 5, it's not actually 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is where it is saying. That looks correct. go to products. So now I have my reviews. So I just want to have some review dot message, and I would like to have an HR horizontal rule just to divide the reviews. So go to products because the data has to be set, and reviews. And this is how it looks like. And now I'll go back to products. So anyway, the presentation is not really important. Go to products and now go to the second product, which doesn't have any reviews. Okay, looks like it has. Go to products again. So I'll look for a product which doesn't have any reviews. Okay, this doesn't have any reviews. So I just want to swap or switch this message. I don't want to show this. So you can use ng if, and we have used it multiple times. So show it only if reviews are defined, and reviews dot length is greater than 0. This makes more sense. And if there are no reviews, I mean, in that case, I may want to show some message, something like that, be the first one to review. So just say ng if reviews is not defined, or reviews dot length is 0. Yes, it shows the reviews. When a product doesn't have any reviews, it says be the first one to review. Okay, it doesn't really show up, and that seems to be a problem. If reviews is not defined, length. This seems to be working fine. The other scenario is no reviews. Yeah, this seems to be working fine as well. So that's brings us to the end of the discussion on this nested routing. So I'm gonna push the changes. Okay, we'll talk about now one other concept, which is route resolvers. So when you go to products, there is slight delay in it. Actually, HTML loads first, some of the HTML, and then the later data loads. So sometimes when people want to load the data first and then load the HTML, or in other case, they want to get the data first and then activate the route. So the first thing what happens here is the route is getting activated and the data flashes. There is a slight delay, probably a second or a half second. So I want to show you how you can fetch the data beforehand, even before this route loads. So it's not going to improve the performance of the getting the data. The time remains same, just that the order changes. So here you're loading the route and getting the data. In whatever case that I'm going to show you now, you will load the data first and load the route next. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. That is called a route resolvers. So go to shade folder, collapse everything, app, shade. I'm going to create product.resolver.ts. This is going to be an injectable class. So create resolver, which implements an interface resolve. This is going to be part of Angular router, this resolve. You should say implements. Okay, this is generic. So just say any, and this has a resolve method, and that needs to be implemented here. So it's simple. Just I'm creating one service. This is an injectable. So end of the day, it's a service and it implements an interface. So implementing this interface is strictly not needed. It's not going to stay in JavaScript code because eventually this code would be transpiled into JavaScript. And there is no concept of interfaces in JavaScript. So this code is going to go away. This is simply useless. But again, at the compile time, it adds some time kind of safety. If you have misspelled something or something like that, you get an error. So this helps. So I would like to go with interfaces, even though they're not strictly needed. I would encourage you to go ahead and add them. So this resolve, I'm not going to do anything here except fetch the data. So constructor, I already have a logic to fetch the data, so I'm not going to rewrite again. So that logic is part of product service. And I'm just going to say return svc dot get. So this dot svc, because it's going to be a global property. Yes, that's it. So this is your resolver and it's an injectable. So it has to be part of a module. So I'm going to add it to the shade module somewhere here. I'll say product resolver. That's the second step. And now you'll go to your routing module and on which route you want to resolve it on the product. So I'm going to say resolve product resolver. Okay, something like this I'm going to say product resolver. So whatever data that is being returned from this resolver's resolve function would be part of response object. So that's resolver. And the last step is go to your product list component. And here, instead of I'm getting using svc.get, I want to get it from the route. So by the time this component loads, the data is already loaded. So I don't need this one here. I'll comment this. I'll get private activated route injection. So this activated route will have the data. So I'm going to say this dot products equals to, and the data comes from this dot route dot snapshot dot data dot response. So where this response is coming from? This response in the resolve, the name of the property that you have given. Pretty straightforward. This snapshot will have parameters and data. So at this moment, I'm interested in data. Whatever data that has been resolved will be part of this data. And I'm interested in the response. So this response actually has to be products. So it's not giving us products directly. If you come back and notice one more time, the API, we are getting data and we're getting metadata. So I'm interested only in data. So I'm going to say response.data. Okay, if this is confusing, try to dig into it, put a console log statement and see how this goes. But exactly you'll have your response, this one, which is coming from the API. And on top of it, I'm calling data property. Don't get confused with this data and this data. This is inbuilt and this is our response. So come back and see whether that worked. Go to contact and products. See now there is no flashing. Everything loads all at once. The data is fetched first and then route is activated and it is shown. So that actually one other way of fetching the data and activating the route. So it doesn't mean that your application has become fast. It's not that case. It's just that you have changed the order in which order you're loading the data. So probably you may want to do this in some cases, or you may want to do this in some other cases. Or if you want to share this some, or if you want to just uh, get the data even before the route is activated for some or the other reason, there could be hundreds of business reasons. In that case, you would go with resolvers. So if you don't like this approach, you want to go with the old-fashioned approach the way we did earlier, you may want to have a loader symbol here until the data is loaded, because there is some delay involved in the loading data. So you may want to show some loader symbol. That is perfectly acceptable, and you can do it. So how to show that loader and all those things, we'll talk about that later, but pretty much you can do that. So anyway, it's up to you which works best for your project. You would choose that, whether you want to get the data first or get the route activated first. So that's route resolver. Let me push these changes. Okay. One more thing we will see, we'll jump into the next topic, which is kind of lazy loading. So what happens actually is when you say ng build, this generates one monolithic bundle for your application, which is main.bundle.js. When you run ng build, you can see in the dist folder somewhere here. So that is a monolithic huge bundle which contains everything. So when you have an enterprise level application, probably you don't want to have one bundle. You want to have chunks of data, chunks of files. So, and you want to load them whenever is needed, not actually everything all at once. So the advantage is pretty obvious. You get faster loading time. Initial loading would be very fast because you have smaller bundles. And of course, whenever is needed on the fly, you download something. So how can you do that? And that concept is called lazy loading in Angular. So again, that is related to routing. Let's see how can we load that one. First thing, I'm going to go, I'm going to create one link here in my header, say lazy. And the route is going to be lazy. So this is just the name that I have chosen just for demonstration. And this is not going to serve any purpose as far as our application is concerned, only for demonstration. And I would like to create a route for this lazy. So go to app router module. I'll say lazy. When the URL is lazy, I want to load this lazy component. Let's go ahead and create a lazy component. And this lazy component needs a reference. Just add it. Okay, nothing magical so far. Everything you know what we have done. So it's just I've added a route. And when you go back and check lazy, you have this lazy works. So I just want to make it a little bit bigger, the text. So I'll go to lazy component and make it a h1 tag and say lazy component. It is actually not lazy component. So whatever the concept that I want to demonstrate is not yet arrived. So let's clean this up. So here the concept is when I load my component, this lazy. So when I go to this URL, okay, I want to load some of the components lazily. So I want to load one module lazily rather than loading it eagerly. So there are two concepts, eager loading and lazy loading. Whatever we are doing so far is eager loading. We are loading all at once, and we are doing lazy loading. And there is no best thing as such. It's just that what works best for you. So it's not like lazy loading is the ultimate concept that you should follow, and doesn't mean that eager loading is bad. So it's just scenario based and just depends on your project and business. Anyway, let's go back and create one more module here in the shared folder. I would like to create a lazy module, lazy dot module dot ts. I'll create a class lazy module, and this may have some declarations. Here it is. And I would like to create one component as well in this, say some dummy component, lazy2 component dot ts import. So I'm just manually creating it. Component. Okay, so the template is going to be this. Selector is going to be app lazy2. Not really important anyway. I'm not going to consume this component. So the template, I'll just say h1 lazy2. So I'm just trying to demonstrate that a module, a lazy module, may have any number of components defined in it. I'll say export class lazy2 component. So this is the second lazy component. I'm just going to add it to the modules declaration. I'll say lazy2 component, and I want to export it because this may be consumed from other components. And if it is consumed only in this module, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to export it. Okay, save this, and that's it. Now the concept is when I go to this URL, I want to load that lazy module. I don't want to load it straight away. And now it doesn't have any dependencies. This lazy module is not loaded. So make sure you are on network tab to see that file. And I'll go to my app.router.module.ts. Here, when this route is activated, I want to load that. So I'm going to say load children. There is a property. And here I'm going to give the URL. So it is app shared and lazy.module, name of the file. And I'm going to say lazy module. So this is how you load the module. You're saying that, okay, the lazy module is in this at this file, and the name of the module is lazy module. This is the name of the file and with path, and this is the name of the module. So save this. If everything goes good, this should have a chunk downloaded when I activate the product. So let's go to some other route. Okay, looks like I've broken something. Maximum call stack exceeded. So actually it is generating one chunk. If you notice here, this is 2 KB lazy.module.chunk.js because we're loading it dynamically. it's not working for some reason here. Go to lazy, and this is the error that I get. Shouldn't matter here. Just cannot find module. That's true. Okay, looks. Make sure I'm on right place. Yes, I am. App, shade, and lazy dot module. Okay, so I'm not really sure what's going on. Let's not worry about that. I'll have a look at it and come up with a solution. So let's do a control Z and comment the code, whatever we have added. But this is how like you add the lazy module, and this will download the chunk file each time. So this applies only for enterprise grade applications where you have a huge bundle and you want to divide it into chunks. So you can have as many as lazy loaded modules, because in enterprise level application, one menu item may have many dependencies and many components. It makes more sense to divide it into chunks and use something like load children to load that modules lazily. So only that module would be downloaded if user navigates to that route. If user didn't, and that downloading will not take place. So that's, I think, a great improvement if your application is huge. If your application is small enough, probably that's kind of a overkill, may not be needed. In our application case, maybe it's kind of a overkill. We are doing this for demonstration. For smaller application may not make much sense, but enterprise grade application, yes, it's going to be a huge win. So I'll comment this and make the application back up and running. I'll have a look at that lazy module. So we are not honestly yet done with the routing. There is one more concept of route guards. So we'll talk about that. But before that, we'll talk about how to save the products. We say how to save a product and delete a product. Deleting a product is a challenge here. I'll talk about that challenge because of the design that we have chosen, and there is a challenge to delete this product and adding a new product validations. After once everything is done, we'll come back and revisit the routing and see what are route guards. Probably that's the best time to discuss routing rather than discussing now. So we'll stop here and meet same time tomorrow.